Quietly you've all turned gray. You did your job, you saved our way. Our life and freedom you preserved. We thanked you less than you deserve. You never boasted, bragged or asked for adulation for your past. You did the job you knew was right, and quietly you cry at night for bodies maimed and comrades lost, for sights beyond our furthest thoughts, for what you lived and felt and seen, for what the cost of freedom means.
My name is Caleb Judy. I am with Cherry Hill High School West ROTC. Today is May 14th, 2008. The veteran I will be interviewing today is Mr. DiGROSSO. His birthday is October 19th, 1932. He served in the Army during the Korean War. We are conducting this interview at the American Legion Post 372 Hall in the Cherry Hill NJ. Sue Quinn Morris of the Ladies Auxiliary and the video recording this interview. Mr. DiGROSSO, please sit.
Thank you.
Were you drafted or enlisted?
I was drafted about February 10th, 1953.
Where were you living at in the time?
At that time, I was living in Pennsauken, New Jersey. And I was married at that time. My wife was expecting a child.
Why did you join?
Pardon me?
Why did you join?
I wasn't joined, I was joined, I was drafted.
Oh wait, sorry. Why did you pick no. What, do you recall your first day in service?
Yes, I can. We reported to the Army in Camden, New Jersey. We left there and went to a place called Whitehall, where we were sworn in the service. And as we were sworn in, every fourth person went in the Marines. I had to be the third, so I went in the Army. We were, like I said, we were sworn in at this Whitehall, and from there we proceeded by bus to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, where we were basically given our the company that we were in and the platoon we were in. And we arrived at Camp Kilmer at nightfall. In fact, when we left in the morning, it was a very clear day. And by nighttime, it was snowing, and it was cold. It was just a miserable day. The drill instructor that was in charge of us proceeded to take us to our barracks, and he said, remove your bedroll and start making your beds. And this was our first induction into the Army. When we started to make our beds, he was walking up and down the aisles, and when we were done, he called us to his attention, and he walked by each bed, and he looked at it to see how it was made, and he proceeded to throw the pillows, the sheets, and the mattress on the floor as he went down the aisle on both sides. It seemed like the boys who were Boy Scouts, they did pretty well. But the guys who were just living home and with their mothers and or wives, whatever, had a little difficult time at first. So,
What did all that feel like?
pardon me?
What did that feel like?
Well, it felt pretty miserable at the time. And like I said, he gave us a chance to make the beds over again, and it kind of soothed him for a while. He wasn't satisfied, but he was soothed. And then he proceeded to march us over to the mess hall, which fed about 3,000 people, which I learned later, which was one of the biggest mess halls in the country at the time. Now, of course, we didn't all eat together, but we were eating in an orderly fashion. And basically, that from the mess hall, we went back to our barracks, spent the night there, and about 6 o'clock in the morning, they had reveille. We woke up at reveille. You had a few minutes to get cleaned up and for inspection, and you still had your civilian clothes on. And from there, we went to the mess hall, had breakfast. After breakfast, he marches over to the quartermaster, where the sergeant in charge started to proceed to give everybody clothes, boots, and whatever. But the Army was way ahead of themselves at that time, considering one size fits all. So that was no problem, you know what I'm saying? If you were small, medium, or large, one size fit all. Then you were marched back to your barracks, and you put your gear away, and they showed you how to get ready for inspection. And, you know, they kept you on the move. Kept you on the move pretty well.
Tell me about your boot camp or training experiences.
What was that?
Tell me about your boot camp training experiences.
Well, boot camp training was very interesting. We had some drill instructors that were all combat veterans, whether they were 19 or 20. They were tough men, tough young men. And the first thing they said to us, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves at the boot head. We went from Camp Kilmer to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, the 31st Infantry Division. And that's when we met our real drill instructors. In fact, they said that us boys from the north, from Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New York, had 2 strikes against us. And somebody hollered out, why? They said, because you're from the north. So we said, oh, okay. And then basically, we went in, got acquainted, put our clothes away, and we were issued, from there on, we were issued our M1 rifle and proceeded to do our basic training. Basic training, we had these drill inspectors. Like I said, they were young, but they were very good. They were excellent. All combat seasoned veterans. We had some older men that had been in the service for like what you call older than 30, 35. And they were seasoned veterans too, because they had been in the Army for 15, 20 years, listed as 17. And the first thing they said to us, after they got us all lined up outside, was if you want to come home again, you better listen to us. And I think everybody took that at heart. And then we proceeded out, basically doing very simple things in the beginning. The first couple of days or so, like marching around the campgrounds, learning how to stay in order, stay in line, from the smallest guy to the largest guy. And after that, they gave us our weapons to carry. And we were, like to say, the platoon that I was in, or the company I was in, was called Baker Company. Second platoon was an infantry company. I think our MOS was 1745, if I remember correctly, which means you were going to take infantry training. So infantry training consisted of 16 weeks, and it was very tough training. There was no sissies in infantry training, really. You just didn't make it. And you know, you got your M1 rifle, whether you shot or you've never shot a gun before, you learn how to shoot. And everybody had to qualify with the M1 rifle. From the M1 rifle, you went to the BAR. from the BAR. You learn to shoot a 30 caliber machine gun. You learn how to fire a mortar, rocket launcher, bazooka, and whatever. And you qualified in them. And it was the most important part was cleaning your weapon. Cleaning your weapon. They were very strict on cleaning your weapon. And if you made any mistakes with it, or my particular drill instructor would make you sleep with your weapon. So, you know, you try not to drop it or do anything foolish with it. Right?
Do you remember your instructors?
Do I remember?
Your instructors?
Yes. Is it a name you mean?
Like anything about them?
Well, I know that Sergeant Brown, well, I had a young sergeant named Sergeant Brown. When he was in Korea, he went up there, he was about 18 years old, he went up one hill, and when he come down the hill, they made him a sergeant. He went up private, come down a sergeant. So that just tells you how many people lived. And he was a very tough guy. He was a Southerner from, I believe, Tennessee, but he was very tough. And he didn't take no for an answer. That's what I could tell you about Sergeant Brown. And we had a Sergeant Cox, who at that time I considered old, about 35 years old. He was in the same mold, a very good field infantry sergeant. We had a Captain McCullough, who was in the Second World War, who was in charge of our company, who was a Medal of Honor winner. We had a First Sergeant, Mitchum, who was very good. And he was chased, he was in Korea, and when he came back from Korea to teach us as a drill instructor, not that he did much as a First Sergeant, a Master Sergeant, Master Sergeant. He had been chased by the Chinese and the North Koreans for 19 straight hours when we were pushed back to Incheon. So he knew what it was all about. And these guys, Cox, Mitchum, and McCullough, all in the Second World War. So they had their share of war and knowledge of war.
How did you get through it? Like, how'd you get through boot camp and stuff?
Boot camp was interesting. Like I said, you learn how to fire all these weapons, and after you were there a few weeks, you had rivalries with other companies. You try to outdo them, they try to outdo you. You were on forced marches, you had day or night. One particular day, they made us march like with full pack, on full gear. 20 miles, we did it in 4 hours. Actually, we didn't march, we were half running all the time. I don't know how we ever did it, but we did it. But it was tough. It was tough, but like I said, no matter you were tall, short, or whatever, there was no stragglers by the end. In the company that I was in, everybody made it. And the weather was very bad that day. We had a hailstorm, and it was really tough. And one thing I want to mention about basic training was, if you were sick for 3 or 4 days, you might get back to the company you were training with. If you weren't sick, of course you proceeded on. But like if you did get sick and you fell behind, you would fall behind in your training and go with a company below you in training.
Which war did you serve in?
Korean conflict.
Where exactly did you go?
Well, first of all, we went from, we were given our choice at Indiana. When I say given our choice, I'll tell you what I mean. When we were in Indiana, after we finished graduation of infantry training, there was rumors, like where you're going, who's going here, who's going there. So finally, when I got my orders, mine said Korea. And I was allowed to take a troop train from Indianapolis to Seattle, Washington. That was all paid for government expense. Or they said you could get to Seattle, Washington any way you could. So I was thinking, well, you know, I'm going to Korea and I may never get back, so I think I'll fly home myself. So me and there was 3 other fellows from this area here, we decided to fly home. So that's what we did. We flew home. I never had what would you call it? In the Army, I never had a day off or whatever. I served 2 years completely. When I got out of service, of course, I got paid for all the days that I didn't take, which a lot of the 30 days a year or something like that. They gave you 30 days a year, but I couldn't use them in Korea, but I did have R&R in Korea. But anyway, we went from Indiana. I flew from Indiana to Philadelphia. Like I said, I was married. I was with my wife. I stayed with her for about 4 days. Flew to Seattle, Washington. Caught up with them boys and got to my barracks. And from there, we stayed there about a week in Fort Lewis, Washington, which is in Seattle. We left there on the General Buckner ship, if I can remember correctly. And we went to, sailed to Japan, Tokyo, something like 9.5 days. We got to Tokyo, and then I really woke up, and I think most of us did. When we got to Camp Drake, you start to see all the boys your age, the men your age, no legs, no feet, all wounded, and you think you said, I'm getting a little worried now. And then from there, we went to Korea. We got on a boat. We sailed from Tokyo to Incheon. As I was on the boat between Tokyo and Incheon, the Korean War was called off. Just a couple days from landing, but we were very fortunate. And we landed at Incheon, and they put you out in a perimeter. They loaded the whole boat off. You were all down one. Just was like wartime yet. They didn't trust nobody. And I remember a few people coming, a little girl, and she wanted to eat something, or if I had any food or anything. And I was ready to give it to her, and the sergeant came to me, which is a new sergeant now, and he says, if you give her that food, soldier, he said, you're not going to have nothing for about 3 days. Well, I thought about it, and I said, well, I don't mind giving you half, but I'm going to keep half too. And that was that. From there, we went to what they call Repeldeppel, was in Daegu, Daegu, Korea, South Korea. And I'll tell you, the school was a mess. It was a mess. People, no food, no nothing. I don't know how anybody could live. It was very primitive. In fact, I was with a sergeant who had served a lot of tours in the Army, and at that time, he didn't know what was the worst country in the world. He had been in both of them, one was India and the other one was Korea. And he didn't know how to place them. But like I said, we went there to this place called Daegu, which is called a Repeldeppel. And they put you in different groups and you go with different squads. I first went to guard a signal communications outfit, stayed with them for about a month, and then from there, they moved me up front. We were right near the DMZ, and then for some reason or other, they classified me secret. I don't know, still to this day, I don't know why, but they classified me secret, and I became what they call Korean Military Advisor Group. So I was attached to the first IROC Corps, IROC Division, rather. And that's a little bit bigger than there's a Corps, and then there's a division. So a Corps is bigger than a division. So we were attached to them. They gave us about 24 men. And the odd part of it, when I got home from the service, I remember the police chief of Merchville coming up to me and he said, hey Nick, he said, what did you do in the service? I said, nothing, why? I said, nothing important. He said, well, you must have. He said, the FBI were investigating. I said, they were. I was shocked. And I said, well, I was classified secret, you know. But we stayed with them, and basically our main duties were to, if something happened, if the war started up again, or somebody crossed the DMZ, and at that time, people were getting killed on that DMZ left and right. There was no regard for life. Truce, they didn't believe in truce, and I still think we could have won that war if they would have let us. But anyway, our main duty was if the South Koreans got out, left us, we were supposed to just warn everybody what was coming and destroy all the equipment and basically try to keep them in line. So that's where we were there.
Do you remember arriving and what it was like?
What it was like? Yeah, it was like something I never dreamed of in my whole life. The poorest country that I had ever seen. I've never been out of America, and I just thank God that I was born in America. And these people had nothing. They had nothing. I just can't imagine. Where I was stationed at for like 3 months in a row, you just didn't see people. Only the friends you were with. There was no civilians around. I mean, you were up no man's land. There was nobody around. No men, no women, no children. They were all in the back there. Everybody had moved back from the little villages. Nobody wanted to be up there. There was no way to make a living. The rice paddies were bombed out. There was nothing there. Nothing there. In fact, even the animals that were alive, I seen a lion one time. My God, I thought he was a dog. That's how thin he was. And there was no dogs or cats. They just, you know what happened to them.
What was your job or assignment?
Pardon me?
What was your job or assignment?
Well, the time was to be on, most of the time we were on guard duty at the DMZ. That's the demilitarized zone, or the 38th perimeter. And basically you worked 3 straight days, off a day. When I say off a day, you didn't go nowhere. You stayed in your area. There was no place to go or nothing. Excuse me, I just seen something over there. Not that. But anyway.
Oh, it's a chipmunk.
Yeah, and they did keep moving us from different areas, but we always ended up with the Rock Division, Rock Corps. We ended up with them. It was an interesting time. It was an interesting 2 years. And, I thought that I learned something. I don't know if I'd want to do it again, but I did learn something. And I respect every veteran that was in their service. I know what they had to go through. Very tough.
Did you see combat?
No, I know I didn't.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
No, not directly from there was casualties, but people had got hurt on their own. Like maybe a weapon discharge or something through carelessness or whatever. At that time, they were having a lot of demonstrations between the people, between not getting enough food and whatever, when they moved us back, whenever they needed help. And like I said, the people weren't getting enough food, so they would demonstrate, and they'd be angry at our government, they'd be angry at the Korean government, South Korean government, until they got until they got some food and whatever, and which you couldn't blame them. There was nothing to eat. It was very poor, very poor. The South Koreans, I have a lot of respect for them. They're not only hard workers, but they deserve what they got. They fought hard.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
I guess one of them was being up on the DMZ, and I guess the other one was being with the South Korean himself. It was, it was a different way of life. Two people that didn't speak the same language. You had to get along. And Americans got pride in them. They always think they're in charge. So that's one thing you got to remember, no matter what army it is, the Americans want to be in charge. I just think that you had to like what you were doing when you started it, and you had to be wide awake. You didn't keep your head down, you kept your head up, so you knew what was going on around you. But like I said, I got a good experience from being with the South Koreans. Very, very rewarding.
Were you a prisoner of war?
No.
Were you awarded any medals of civilization?
Yes, I was. I was awarded this 50 years later from the South Korean president, and everybody that was over there received this award. And like I said, I only got it a couple of years ago, and I'm very proud of it. And I did receive an award from Colonel Bancroft from Camden County for my service in the Army in Korea. And I also got a couple other medals, which I have to say that when I come home from the service, my son was, he played with the medals, and to this day, you can always receive them, but I don't know where they're at right now. But I did get a couple other medals. Bronze Star with an oak leaf on it or something.
How did you get them?
Just for actually, I believe I get them for just being in the area, doing what they call a war zone.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Well, you would write a letter, and it would have a California address, and you could keep in charge. And what I'd like to mention, in 1953, when I said I was drafted in February of 1953, September of 53, I got a phone call, and it was the Red Cross, and they called me up and they said, and Nicholas DiGROSSO, I said, yes. They said, you have a son born. I said, oh, good. And I didn't see my son until I come back from service. It was 18 months. So he was walking around, and when I did get home, he was a little jealous of Mama, and he didn't want no parts of me. But it took a while. And he got okay. It's okay. But I remember the first night home, when I did get home, he had a bottle of milk. He uncapped the nipple and poured it right over me when I was in bed. I said, "Wham, what a heck of a time this is." But I never forgot it. But, Army life is probably something that some people love, and some people are glad to do it and get it over with. Me, I still think everybody should be drafted. And I think it would make our country stronger. But, that's up to the government.
What was the food like?
I would say on a whole, the food wasn't too bad. In fact, one Christmas Eve, I had Raymond Burr. He come over with Penny Singleton. I don't know if you remember Penny Singleton, but she was Blondie. You remember in the movies Dagwood and Blondie? And Blondie, and a movie star who was making it big at that time. She wore a special beige, ermine bathing suit. Her name was Terry Moore. And they came over, and I had Christmas Eve dinner with Raymond Burr. He sat right beside me. And he said, we had sweet potatoes and ham and a vegetable. It was a good meal. And he said, "Soldier, how come you're not eating?" I says, "I just can't eat sweet potatoes no more. And the ham." He said, "Why not?" I said, "We get it a lot." Now, of course, that was a special meal, and I found him to be a very nice man. He enjoyed the meal, and it took me a long time to get used to eating ham again and sweet potatoes, but I'm back on it.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yeah, I would say we were sufficient. Not all the time, but most of the time. It was very hard getting supplies over the mountains, and it's very mountainous country. It's a very cold country in the winter, and a lot of humidity in the summer. Your clothes in the summer would go from dry to soaking wet by 8:30 at night. Actually, the water would almost pour off and make it cold in some area.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
Did I feel pressure?
Yeah, or stress?
The only pressure I felt is that I missed home. I missed my family, I missed my friends. And I did see a couple fellows that I knew from town over in Korea, but it was far and in between.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
For good luck? No, I was just always careful. And I prayed.
How did people entertain themselves?
How did the people what?
Entertain themselves?
There was no entertainment. Not where we were, no entertainment at all. Once in a while, like I said, when these movie stars came, they put on a show, a USO show, and they would, that would be entertainment. And they would gather everybody up in a makeshift theater, outdoor makeshift theater, and then have a show put on. But there was no movies, no nothing like that. Not in Korea.
What did you do when on leave?
What did I never, the only leave I ever had in the service was R&R. I went from, they flew us for, I think, 6 days or so from Korea to Tokyo. And we could, R&R, and that didn't count against our leave time. That was very good to get away. You had a choice of going there or Hong Kong, I believe.
Where did you travel while in the service?
Well, basically, I traveled while I was in the service to a lot of different towns in Korea itself. I went from Incheon to Daegu, from Daegu up to the 38th perimeter. I ended up going home through Busan. I was up at Chuchon. I was up to a lot of different little villages and stuff like that, things like that. But also, like I said, we did end up in Busan, and that's where we sailed for home from. From Busan, we went to Seattle, Washington, making our way back. And then from Seattle, Washington, we flew back to Newark Air Force Base, and then arrived at Camp Kilmer again. And then in a couple of days, we were out of the service.
Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events?
Yes, there was a couple of unusual events where soldiers got in trouble, or on guard duty or whatever, but really through carelessness and really nothing really to mention.
What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull? What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
Some of the pranks, well, we had a young fella our age that didn't seem to like this was in basic training, didn't seem to like to take a shower. So we took him into the bathroom, and we proceeded to get him undressed and give him a shower. you know, this is the way you wash yourself, this is the way you brush your teeth, this is the way you shave yourself. And if he still didn't understand it after that day, I'm sure he got the drift of it. But there were pranks we pulled, stuff like that, or on guard duty, not the officer of the day or something like that. But basically, we had a couple, like I say, just two fellas that were out of it. You know what I mean? Didn't like to shower or whatever. And we certainly took care of them that way.
Do you have photographs?
Do I have what?
Any photographs?
No. I have some home, except for these, that's it. I have some, soldier photographs, yes.
Who are the people in the photographs that you have?
Well, they're me and a couple of fellows that were in my platoon, like a named Reg Nestor, a fellow named Emilio DeLeo, and mostly a fellow named Timmerman and whatever. They were from all walks of life. I had a fellow named Diamond Duxon. Yeah, it's a pretty good group, because we were a company, so.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes, I do. I recall it very well. You mustered out, you signed your papers. If there was anything wrong with you, you try to get it to write it down. If you were lucky enough, they wrote it down, and if they gave you a hard time, you didn't want to argue with them, you say, let me get out of here. And then, you were just let go, and that was it. You were coming down. When I left, Route 130 was called Route 25, and I looked at the signs, I said, where am I at? And I figured, well, Canton, Philadelphia this way, so I'll go this way. It was then called 130 when I come home. I'll never forget it.
Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
A couple, but sorry to say, over the years, they kind of faded away.
So you don't continue with these friendships?
No, I don't continue with it. Like I said, the one fellow that I was very friendly with has died. Actually, he was killed right after he got out of the service in an accident. And the other fellow, he died a natural death, the ones I was really close to. And then I never had the opportunity to meet anybody else again that I was acquainted with.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Yes, I'm a life member of the American Legion. I belong to Post 68, Birchville, New Jersey. I'm also a member of the VFW unit, VFW, attached in Berlin. A life member too. And I'm also in the 40 and 8, which is like a fun thing, but the 40 and 8 is from the First World War. It was 40 men and 8 horses, in a railroad car, and that's how they pushed them around the First World War. And I am a member of that.
What did you go on to do as a career after the war?
I worked for a utility company in Merchantville. I worked there for about almost 40 years.
Do you attend reunions?
I have attended reunions, not particularly of my own unit, but I have attended reunions, service-connected reunions. And I also go to American Legion conventions.
How did your service and experience affect your life?
Well, to be honest with you, I guess the 2 years I was in the service kind of put me behind a lot of people. But I guess I got out of that. I missed my family for 2 years. But otherwise, besides that, that's the most important part. But then again, to have a free country, you have to fight for it.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
No, but I would like to thank you and your generation for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it very much, knowing what my generation went through. And I do appreciate you, and I appreciate Sue's time. Very thoughtful of you.
Okay, thank you very much.